speaking of chips off the table, here we're looking at the total supply in profit. So literally how many coins, and this is a binary categorization. If the price is 1 cent above its cost basis, it's deemed in profit. If it's below, it's deemed in loss. So it's a very binary setup. How many coins are in or out of profit? Now, of course, we're just doing this visually, and I can talk about the numbers here, but those who are running this this type of metric through some kind of calculation or API and actually doing this into any kind of trading strategy, what I'm going to describe here is a way to identify periods of, well, let's call it cost basis concentration, supply clusters, however you want to frame it. When we're at the all-time high, naturally every coin is in profit. When we get a sell-off, however, and we can look at this in terms of how much the price falls, how many of those coins go from a binary in profit to in loss condition. Now, over recent weeks, we've pulled back from about 73,000, the all-time high, and we got down as low as about 61,000. Now, in that process, approximately 2 million Bitcoin dropped from in profit to in loss. Now, because we're at all-time high, that's technically telling us that there's 2 million Bitcoin with a cost basis above 61,000. So we're starting to refine the actual cost basis calculations. If we then have our rally back up towards 70,000, there's about 1 million coins. So we kind of retraced about 50% of the supply in profit. Now that's telling us that we've essentially got about 1 million. I forget the exact numbers. I think it's 66,500. So don't quote me on it. It is in the written report. But somewhere between 61 and 66,000, there's a million Bitcoin with the cost basis there. And then between that 66,000 and 73,000, there's another million. So we know there's about 2 million coins as of the time of writing that have a cost basis within our current correction zone. And it's split roughly 50-50 at about 66,500 is the price level. It's kind of in the middle of those two. Now, of course, what we're seeing here is a much, much deeper correction in our total supply in profit. So speaking about that MVRV and why I brought up this bearish divergence, we have seen a lot more coins get distributed from a lower cost basis, could be from the FTX lows, it could even be from the 2018 or even earlier cycles, it doesn't really matter. We've had a lot more coins transferred during recent months because of all the new inflowing liquidity from these ETFs and the excitement and all of these components. There's a lot more coins that have transacted up here. And as a result, when we get these pullbacks, yes, it's only a 15% correction. We've had many 15% corrections since the FTX lows, but this is the deepest correction we've had in terms of total supply and profit because there has been more distribution pressure. We've broken up through the previous all-time high, and this is typically when long-term holders start to distribute. Now, of course, there's a series of questions I've had in the previous video in the comments section asking about GBTC. So my take on GBTC, and we've done previous studies, it's something in the order of about 50 to 60% of the current long-term holder spending is GBTC. Now, this is actually perfectly normal, and by my account, it is behaving exactly the same way that long-term holders sell side should, because there's always going to be nuances. In previous cycles, GBTC was actually growing up. So yes, it was just long-term supply selling to GBTC. Well, this cycle, we have GBTC as the long-term supply, and it's selling to, well, some of it's just straight up sell pressure by many of these bankrupt estates, but some of it is sell pressure moving into other ETFs, but some of it was also sell pressure moving into GBTC. So these nuances always exist. The important thing is that is still sell side pressure that must be absorbed by something. Is it another ETF? Is it a hodler? Who is it? Doesn't really matter. There has to be a demand come in to soak up that GBTC supply. So yes, we can argue that it's GBTC and long-term holder and there's a crossover, but it is functionally acting the exact same way that long-term supply decreasing always does. So, there's nuances and there's error bars, but generally speaking, at least to my eye and having spent enough time with this data, in many ways, a lot of these nuances often collapse down to just nuances that sometimes matter, but a lot of the time actually don't matter that much. And certainly when we're looking at just things from an objective kind of big picture view, the more you drill down, the more refined we look at it. Yes, these things make more of a difference. But in terms of what we're looking at here, those coins must still be absorbed by somebody, an ETF or otherwise.